I have come to realize that civil rights movement, especially so-called civil rights movement, excuse me, especially when they forced busing and all that stuff started happening, it looked like, and at the time I was living in Alabama, I grew up on a plantation down there near Montgomery, and Black people seem to be more independent, more free thinkers and independent then than they are today. And over the years, they seem to have gotten worse with free thinking. What would it take to get Blacks, and not all but most, back to free thinking and relying on self again?
I think, first of all, you can't generalize about the Black community. I think the biggest split in America isn't between whites and Blacks. It's low-income Blacks and upper-income Blacks.
Yes.
There's more of a class split than it is a race split. So that's where the divide is. And also, I think Blacks in the South, they say white folks in the South didn't care how high a Black got as long as you didn't get too close. and in the North, they didn't care how close you got as long as you don't get too high.
Yeah.
Most of your Black millionaires are in the South.
Yes.
Most of the wealth accumulation in Black Wall Streets are among Blacks in the South because of the harsh resistance of the government. We were compelled to be self-sufficient. So when I look for role models of self-sufficiency and whatnot, I looked in the South.
That's a very good point. And it's just unfortunate that the Blacks in the North think that the Blacks in the South were not doing that well because they've been told by the leadership that the Blacks were not. They were not able to function, which was not true.
Yeah, see, I've always believed in our recent studies, when whites were at their worst, we were at our best.
Yeah.
So we destroyed this myth that somehow the problems of out-of-wedlock births and crime and violence and unemployment in the Black community somehow is a legacy of slavery and Jim Crow. That's BS.
Yeah.
Because the biggest drop in poverty in the Black community was from 1945 to 65. It's almost cut in half. More Blacks went to college in 1950 to 1960, before we had the civil rights, than any other time. Most of our millionaires came from Morehouse, not from Harvard.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So, and then our Black Wall Streets, we studied that in the Bronzeville section of Chicago in 1919. There were 731 Black-owned businesses and 100 million in real estate assets just in that one section. So you can't say that banks were redlining. We didn't get any money from banks. We had to use our own instrument. Yeah. But liberals tend to dismiss self-sufficiency because it doesn't fit the racial narrative. And so a lot of Black leadership thrive in the presence of Black complaints and Black grievance. And as Booker T. Washington said, there are a class of Negroes who thrive off of the grievance of the Blacks.
Yes.
And if we lose our grievance, they lose their income.
That's true. That is so true. So many Blacks are being, excuse me, so many Blacks are being educated today to have that wrong mentality about America, about life, and the way things should be. Now that these people are being educated in a wrong manner, how would this ever end? What's the end?
Well, part of what we're doing at the Woodson Center is there's a huge bifurcation in the Black community. When you talk about choice in education, vouchers, 60 to 70% of low-income Blacks support choice and vouchers.
Yeah.
Less than 10% of middle-class Black leaders do. A lot of the so-called Black leadership support defund the police. 80% of low-income Blacks are against defund the police.
All right.
So there are huge differences that do not get acknowledged in there. And so what I think we need to do is that a lot of the people on the left, their authority comes from presenting themselves as being representative of all blacks.
Right.
But what we do, we have about 3,500 grassroots leaders in 39 states. A lot, and most of them are black, not all of them.
Right.
When you give them an opportunity to speak and act for themselves, it undermines the moral authority of those who are supposed to be leaders. So rather than you and me arguing with them, I let 20 of my grassroots leaders who are ex-offenders, who are redeemed and transformed, I let them speak for themselves. I had a debate with Hawk Newman for an hour on C-SPAN, on YouTube. See, I don't confront him with my argument. I confront him with facts.
Yes. I have family members who I grew up with, and they moved to the city, and for some reason when they moved to the city, their mind changed about real life, right? And even today, they argue with me about Trump because I was talking with them about school voucher and how much the black people want that. They want to be able to take their kids out of these horrible schools and take them to wherever they want. But they're like mad thinking that that's a white idea. You just try to be white. That's not fair to leave other black kids behind. And I'm surprised at my family member who think that way. We all grew up together. It's not like we grew up except they went to the cities and their minds were changed.
Welcome to the club. I got family members the same way, and I can't even talk politics to them.
Right.
No. But, there are examples. In 2018, when DeSantis was running for the governor of Florida, he ran against the black candidate Gillum. Remember, he was the former mayor.
I remember that.
Gillum had Oprah Winfrey and Obama come out and campaign for him. And DeSantis won by a very small percentage of the vote, by 32,000 votes. That's because 100,000 low-income blacks split their ticket and voted for him. So they voted against Oprah and Obama because of his strong support of vouchers and education.
Yeah.
So a lot of our people are waking up and begin to vote their interest as opposed to vote their party. That's why 30% of black men voted for Trump.
Yeah. I remember in L.A., some years ago now, we were fighting to get the voucher system here in L.A., and blacks were for it. A lot of black people were for it. And then when Maxine Waters and others saw that black people were for it and they're like, we're going to pass, they brought in Jesse Jackson and others, and I guess they convinced some of the other blacks or whomever they convinced not to vote for the voucher system, but it was really about to pass here in L.A. at one time.
And Jesse Jackson and Eleanor Holmes Norton, Marion Wright Edelman, all of them sent their kids to Sidwell Friends School.
Yeah.
While opposing vouchers for kids in D.C. Every one of those leaders, even Frank Smith, the superintendent of school who was black, withdrew his child and put her in Sidwell Friends School when he was superintendent of schools. But you see, we tolerate this contradiction and hypocrisy because those blacks use that racial shield to protect them against criticism.
Yeah.
And they use it as a sword against anybody who challenges them.
It's amazing to me that Jesse Jackson and all those guys pretend that they love black people, that they're fighting for black people, but everything they do is to keep the blacks down. And they don't seem to be bothered by that. That's amazing.
Well, that's why this last election, Trump is the first post-racial president.
Yes.
Because he put together a coalition that Republicans have not been able to do in a long time. 30% of black men voted for him.
Yeah.
Half of Hispanics voted for him, even though that joke at the meeting was supposed to finish him. Because people said he's an unorthodox person who is a disruptor. And we need a disruptor. There's nothing worse than the status quo.
Yes. Yeah.
Kamala Harris would have been a vote for the status quo. Yeah. And I say Trump is a disruptor. And that's what we need right now. He is one of the few white people who is not guilty. It's so refreshing to meet a non-guilty white person.
Absolutely. Hopefully with Donald Trump there, the great white hope, I call him, is there that we can finally get the voucher system passed. Because I do hear them talking about that we may get there. So I'm hoping that it would happen this time around.
Yeah, and what they need to do, though, is they should spend as much time talking about what things they're for they are than the things that they're against. So you must weed and seed. The gospel says that if you clear a field of weeds and you leave it barren, then weeds 3 times as worse will grow. But if you clear it and then plant new seeds, so the empowerment of low-income people is what they need to focus on, that will plant new seeds where the government was running the farm. The people should take over and run the farms.
Absolutely, man. That's a good point. That's amazing.